heard was from a piece entitled Down at the Cross by James Baldwin. Some consider it to be a sermon. I consider it to be a sermon. James Baldwin was a preacher from the ages of 14 through 17 in a Pentecostal church, and never left his village, even though he became a writer of essays and playwright. He said, look and check it out. It's called Down at the Cross. It's a marvelous piece of work. I am indeed thankful and grateful to be with you all here today to celebrate this African American History Heritage Month. I am certainly indebted to the worship planning team, or our singers, or Reverend Ayana and the entire team who put this thing together. It's simply amazing, and I am grateful to be a part. I want to read this text. It is recorded in the book of Jeremiah, the 6th through the 6th chapter, the 13th through the 15th verse. And it reads like this: For from the least of them to the greatest, all are greedy for gain. From prophet to priest, all practice deceit. They dress the wound of my people with very little care, saying, peace, peace, when there is no peace at all. Are they ashamed of their abomination? Are they ashamed of the sin they have committed? No, they have no shame at all. They do not even know how to blush. So they will fall among the fallen. When I punish them, they will collapse, says the Lord. Would you bow with me and just word of prayer? God, we thank you now for this gracious and wonderful opportunity. We know, God, that thy word is a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path. God, give us wisdom, give us courage, and most of all, give us the ears to hear what it is that you say to the church. Amen. I entitled the sermon, Will I Die Before I Wake? I am so very certain that all of us at one time or another have heard, have taught, or even prayed this iconic children's prayer. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. My sense of this, following my reading in James Baldwin, one of my major conversation partners in my reading and my writing and my life at this moment, we use the word God and safety synonymously. And when we use the word religion, often, most often, it's about safety. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take, is a request for safety in the face of death and the afterlife. But I wonder, what if we made it a prayer for safety in this life? What if the prayer was about our conduct in the world before we die? What if we took the die before I wake part more seriously? Rather, should it be, should I die before I wake? How about, will I die before I wake? Will I die before? Will I become woke before I die? Will America die before it wakes? All right. Will America die before it becomes woke? We are celebrating African American History Month. I was tasked with the opportunity to relate the sermonic message to the time of Reconstruction. This was time after the Civil War when so much blood was shed, and even a sitting president, Abraham Lincoln, was shot and killed. It was a time where there was a flourishing of an alternative, multiracial vision of justice and remaking of the South. It achieved impressive results for African American equality. Federal troops were placed in the South to ensure equality and help make possible so many of the gains. I could list gain after gain after gain, except we don't have the time. When federal troops were removed in the Compromise of 1877, blacks were left without protection from the violence and the intimidation of the South once again. It was precisely this possibility of the eventual trade-offs between the North and the South with the abandoning of racial equality that led Frederick Douglass to oppose any unpunished reconciliation with the former Confederacy. Douglass said after the Compromise of 1877 that the government had asked the slaves to espouse its cause, turn against their masters, and yet they will return to their masters without a single shred of protection. David Blight in Race and the Union points out that the moral imagination of the majority of white Americans did not allow any real reconciliation without resubjugation of those who had been freed from bondage. As a result, for 75 years, black people were again and continually brutalized and assaulted, subjected to racial violence, sexual violence, gender violence, hate, sharecropping, discrimination, voter suppression, lynching, and every form of conceivable injustice under majority white American lack of moral imagination to envision equality. Again, it took 75 years of struggle before the Civil Rights Movement, along with the ruling of Brown versus Board of Education, to lay waste to segregation. The great moral paradox, racial inequality, symptomatic of a lack of a pluralistic vision of America, including exclusion of gender and LGBTQIA equality, has infested the heart of American society from the founding of the nation and still lingers today. A pluralistic America is a moral limitation and an indication of a lack of moral imagination for many in America. So our focus should not be, should I die before I wake? I pray the Lord my soul will take, but will America die before it wakes? Will America die before it becomes woke? Just last week, 600 African American studies faculty in higher education at dozens of colleges and universities wrote an open letter to broadcast their outrage at the efforts of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to delegitimize the AP's pilot curriculum in African American studies, to intimidate the college board into appeasement and wholesale revisions, and deny the young citizens of his state the world-class education to which they have a right. In January, the state's education department sent a letter to the college board notifying that the AP curriculum is inexplicably contrary to Florida law and significantly lacks educational value. DeSantis put the rationale this way: we don't believe that they should have an agenda imposed on them where you try to use black history to shoe in queer theory, that you are clearly trying to use that for political purposes. For DeSantis, his supporters, and many who are silent and complicit, African American history amounts to woke indoctrination masquerading as education. African American history lacks educational value because they don't want white kids to feel bad. DeSantis said that Florida is the place where woke comes to die. Will these folks wake? Will these folks wake before they die? Will these folks get woke before they die? At a very basic level, I wonder if DeSantis even knows what woke is. But like so many that have not read or taken the time to learn anything about wokeness or sit down and really talk to anybody who claims to be woke. For example, all these folks running around talking about critical race theory being taught in grade schools. And anybody that takes time to read and learn anything about critical race theory knows it's taught in law schools. When made aware of this, they still go around and say the very same thing, claiming that CRT should not be taught to children. The levels of ignorance, anti-intellectualism, dismissing of facts, and unwillingness to be educated is massive, and for the most part, inexcusable. I wonder if America will die before it wakes. Come on, Doc. Professor David Murray recounts the spirit of these anti-DEI times when a young white poet tells a female poet of color in a workshop, "I'm just not into identity poems," and seems to be remarking on the quality of her poem. In reality, Murray says he's really saying that he gets no pleasure from any poems about racial or ethnic identity, no matter their quality. What he means is, I don't want to know who you are or what your reality is. Moreover, contemplating that is unpleasant for me. Namely, it does not give me pleasure. Murray remarks his fuller and deeper commentary is this: I am comfortable being ignorant, and being forced to confront my ignorance not only causes me pain, it takes me away from the pleasures in what I enjoy in ways I can't articulate, and this enrages me. All of this is in the statement that African American history has no education about. I don't want to know history. I'm not interested. It causes me pain to think about it. It makes me uncomfortable. I like being ignorant. Being forced to confront my ignorance causes difficulties. It takes me away from pleasures. I can't articulate it. Will America die before it wakes? Will you and I die before we wake? Will you and I die before we get woke? One of our PhD students, Frederick Douglass Haynes III, is doing his dissertation on woke preaching. He wrote a paper for me, and with his permission, I quote his paper. He said, woke is a term with a history of defining what it meant to be conscious of unjust and racist systems while fighting for justice in the United States. It was first used in the 1930s by the blues singer Leadbelly in response to injustice experienced by the Scottsboro Boys. Barry Beckham wrote a play in 1971 entitled Garvey Lives. Marcus Garvey. Garvey Lives. And one of the lines in the play, a character testifies, says, I've been sleeping all my life, and now that Mr. Garvey done woke me up, I'm going to stay woke. Georgia Ann Muldrow explained that in understanding what your ancestors went through, just being in touch with the struggle that our people have gone through and understanding that we've been fighting for basic rights since the day we touched down here. Erica Badu in her song Master Teacher, and the refrain says, I stay. The word gained momentum in the aftermath of the police slaying of Mike Brown Jr. in Ferguson, Missouri, killing of Trayvon Martin in Sanford, Florida, by a neighborhood watchguard, George Zimmerman. Social justice activists marched and organized under the galvanizing phrase, stay woke, as they critiqued the system. As they demanded public safety and were determined to abolish abusive police systems. Woke means one is self-aware. Woke means one is able to critique the narratives and the lies of white supremacy while striving and working for a better world. Will America die before it wakes? Will America die before it becomes woke? One of the ways that generations of black people, slaves, stayed alive was they believed in a God that was woke. A God on the side of liberation and justice. A God that unauthenticated the lie that white supremacy could live forever. A God who believed in the meek shall indeed inherit the earth. That we will all reap what we sow. That everybody talking about heaven ain't going there. For generations, black folks have pulled up the Hebrew prophets because they were woke. They were concerned about the least, the last, and the left out. In the spirit of this tradition, I bring the prophet Jeremiah to the homiletical stage. In 626 BCE, God called Jeremiah to prophesy. He was to prophesy Jerusalem's coming destruction by armies from the north. Israel had forsaken God by worshiping the idols of Baal and even burning their own children as offerings to Baal. The nation had deviated so far from God's law, they had broken the covenant, causing God to withdraw God's blessings. Jeremiah was guided by God to proclaim that the nation of Judah would suffer famine, foreign conquest, plunder, and captivity in a land of strangers. Jeremiah suffered viciously for his woke preaching. Beaten, placed in stocks. While Jeremiah was prophesying the coming destruction, he also denounced several other prophets who were prophesying peace. He says this in Jeremiah 6, which is 13 through 15. Far from the least of them to the greatest, all agree for gain. From prophet to priest, they practice deceit. They dress the wound of my people with very little care, saying, peace, peace, but there is no peace. Are they even ashamed of the abomination they've committed? No, they don't have any shame at all. They don't even know how to blush. So they will fall among the fallen. When I punish them, they will collapse, says the Lord. Jeremiah is a old prophet called the nation to repentance. And maybe the nation was so far gone that they would die before they would live. Jeremiah said the whole nation had been given over to privilege and greed. They hardened their hearts to God and against the word of God and ignored and persecuted the prophets that were woke. Their chosen television prophets dealt falsely, not only propagating the big lie, not even believing it themselves, but still propagating it. They kept the outward form and appearance of truth and piety. But in fact, they were doing wickedness. They did not address the wounds of the people who had been deeply wounded, giving soothing speeches and sermons when the people needed sharp reproofs, which might have brought people to a true sense of the danger of their condition, promising peace and safety when they were nowhere near peace and safety. In fact, they were on the brink of disaster. And out of this text, I almost preached this by itself. This gets me the most. They were not ashamed. Their hearts were so hard, they were not ashamed. They could not even blush. In the face of a coup, they could not even blush. Some scholars think that this is especially to refer to the priests and the prophets who had sued the people in their sins and would not raise the specter of their deceit and treachery. God says, therefore, they shall fall. They shall fall among them that fall. I hope they wake before they die. I hope we all wake before we die. My children are here. My grandchildren are here. I got generations ahead. I hope we get woke. Well, if I hope we get woke, what then might save the nation? Let me suggest three things as I go to my seat. First, to rescue our educational system from a total collapse into ignorance. what we might call academic freedom. American youth have been so badly educated with this anti-woke education.
Yes.
James Baldwin said it this way: education demands a certain daring, a certain independence of mind. Education is to teach people to think. And in order to teach some people to think, you have to teach them about everything. There must not be something that they cannot think about, or books they cannot read. If there is one thing that they can't think about, then they can't think about anything. If academic freedom and education dies, then we raise children that can't think about anything. This book banning anti-woke assault on academic freedom must be opposed at every hand. What's next? DeSantis become president, pass a law that the PhD program in African American preaching and secular rhetoric has no intellectual redeeming value, no educational value. And when I wrote that, I laughed. This is a joke, except we were joking when Mr. Trump got elected. Academic freedom? How many man Toni Morrison, Bill Hooks, James Baldwin? Matter of fact, I'm hoping he banned some of my books. I think it's a great list to be on. Number two, intimacy. We must trust our own nakedness. Baldwin says this: identity is a garment in which one covers the nakedness of self. It is best if the garment is worn loose. A little like the breezy flowing robes of the desert. The clothing or the robes with which one covers their nakedness can always be felt, and sometimes, if honestly examined, discerned. If a stranger walks into our village, God forbid we walk into a village of strangers, we are subtly aware that there are other identities and other ways of looking at the world. There are alternative roles with which people dress. It is possible to transform one's garments or one's identity and challenge the way that one thinks about oneself. Baldwin says this in a marvelous phrasing. He says that transformation is a terror as primary as the nightmare of the mortal fall. One can refuse that new knowledge and pretend that their view of the world is universal. The transformative option is to admit that one's view of the world is neither completely objective nor universal. This would be to acknowledge that there are other robes that can be put on. This means that our robes are not quite as once splendid as we once thought they were. I would have to admit that I am not my robe, and in fact that I am a naked soul. It is my trust in my own nakedness that makes one humane to others and in the most full sense, human.
Right. Right.
When you don't trust your own nakedness, you believe that your own clothes are universal and normative. And then thirdly, and finally, we must get the social history of reading, the social reading of history correct to really know who we are. We cannot make any significant progress in becoming a more humane society, and we don't get history right. The danger is that history means very different things to Europeans, to Americans, and African Americans, and others. Given this reality of different histories and alternative realities, my reading of Baldwin suggests that he's not even sure what the word history truly meant. He concluded that if history means anything, it means that you have learned from the experiences of the past, and if you have not learned anything from the past, the word history must be changed. Americans have learned very little from the past, based on the fact that we're still running around romanticizing mythology of the Wild Wild West, the cowboys and the Indians, the cops and the robbers, the blacks and the whites, the good and the evil. And when one is always the good and the other is always the bad, this is history as domination and power, not history.
All right.
We don't even, for example, as we watch Westerns, no, it wasn't about males and their supremacy rescuing damsels in distress. No, the fight was at the Land Trust Office and in the courts and the edicts to take the land and send 28 million Native Americans. The taking of 28 million acres of land and then sending Native Americans on the Trail of Tears. This is not the kind of history as domination and power. One is consistently portrayed as bad, and the other is always good. The truth, understanding the word history, that history is common, it belongs to us all.
Right.
And as a result of being common, it is not always clear who are the good ones and who are the bad ones. In this sense, history expresses multivocal understandings belonging to us all. In this present moment of banning books and the misguided efforts to erase any history that is not white supremacist mythology, such as the banning of the 1619 project, I say it is history, belongs to us all. To save ourselves, we must establish academic freedom. We must trust our own nakedness. My identity is not final. My identity is not the norm for every person alive. Identity is fluid. It can grow, expand, stretch, enlarge. Well, finally, where's it going? Well, I'll ask this question. Will America die before it wakes? Will Americans wake up? Will America ever be woke? I'm not sure. Some days, every now and then, when I see all of those folks marching in the aftermath of George Floyd, I thought, well, maybe we're heading in a new direction. Most other days, when I hear that African American curriculum has no educational value, I know the jury's out. It's up to you and me. It's also up to those running around claiming certain people, history related to people, has no education value. And the despondency of these latter days, a friend helped me. He said to me that you're grappling with hope. You seem to believe that hope is an intellectual, theological concept that is individualistic in one's head and heart between you and God alone, which you hope. In a discussion, it came forth that sometimes it's appropriate having one's hope in God, between you and God, and me and I and God. That is a real thing. But he asked me, whom do you hope with? Which made it commute. Whom do you hope with? I hope with you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you. I hope with CTS because I know that you know that African American history has an educational value, or else there would not be as many African American folk running around here as there are. One thing. Secondly, I hope with you because you know that I believe that your queer theory has educational value. hope with you and you hope with me because you know that I believe your womanism has educational value. Right? I hope with you and you hope with me because you know that the experience of transgender people has educational value, that Native people of this land has educational value, has educational value, has educational value. Will we die before we wake? I have no idea. It's in God's hands. But I do know with you I will wake before I die. With you I'll be woke before I die. With you I carry woke, you being American history, theology. Because together we will be woke before we die. In Jesus' name.